This video is brought to you by our friends over at Radioddity.com. So check them out if you're interested in this radio or other ham radio products. Hey, Bob Nagy here, AB5N. Another little radio review. Now, these days, HF bands have been pretty darn poor. What happened to our good old sunspot cycle? So there seems to be a burst of activity in DMR. And even though it's over the internet, it does give you a lot of the zip you need out of a ham radio. I mean, you're talking to people, you're talking about the ham radio stuff, and you're making relationships and talking all over the world pretty darn easy. Now, we've got a whole bunch of handy talkies out there available from mainly Chinese manufacturers, and we've got some mobiles available, and there's some stuff to choose from, but, you know, what's in between? What do I mean by what's in between? I mean this over here. This is a Radioddity DB25. Look at the size of this thing. I mean, handy talkie size, small handy talkie size, but it's 20 watts. 5 watts or 20 watts, low and high power. It does FM as well. It does APRS as well. And now it's pretty darn easy to program. Boy, you could mount this on a lot of things that you couldn't mount to, you know, something else or a larger radio. And it's all there. It's got a little GPS antenna on the back that's pretty darn swift. And I think initially it was a little more difficult to program, but now there's some really great programming software. And the price of it is really attractive. So if you want to experiment with DMR, or you're into DMR and you want to, you know, put something on your electric bike or something like that, or someplace where you couldn't fit a radio, you know, this might be the ticket. Let's check it out. So let's take a look at what comes in the nice box that they ship it in here. Of course, your radio, plus a little GPS antenna that goes on the back, a microphone with plenty of extra function buttons, the manual, the programming cable, and a power cord with a 12-volt cigarette lighter plug on it, which you can, you know, swap out for Anderson power pole or whatever else you might want. And let's not forget that they do supply a handy-dandy mobile mounting bracket. The radio itself is really small. The display, though, is quite adequate for reading everything you need to see on there. Speakers of decent size as well. Here's your main volume control. Push it in, though, and goes to the menu system. On the top, we have 3 programmable buttons, and we have 2 buttons which are just what you'd expect: volume, squelch, tone, tone select, and an A-B switch for your 2 different VFOs. On the side, there's a little cover that comes off here, and that's where your programming cable goes. You can put the cover back on when you're done. It's got a rather small heatsink, but a nice size blower on the back, because, you know, 20 watts in this size package could heat up under a heavy-duty cycle operation. Your GPS antenna screws right on the back with a nice gold-plated SMA, and your classic SQ239 PL259 connector. Inline fuse and standard mobile-type power connector. Very nice, robust construction. Feels really beefy. And what's really nice is that, you know, it's so small you think there isn't room for enough buttons and stuff, but once you look at the microphone, you realize, there's more function buttons on the microphone over here. So you've got a lot more button action than you might expect on such a small radio. I mean, look at that size. And there's a built-in magnet in the back of the microphone over here. I mean, almost as big as the radio. The programming cable just plugs right into the side of the radio over here, and you do download a driver, USB driver, and install that before you would hook the radio up to your PC for programming. Getting into the menus is pretty darn easy on this thing. You just press the main tuning control or volume control in, and you get into your stuff over here, and you can just go through each one and select it and go into it. And then the button on the top over here, which is the AB button, is also the back button to get back out of everything. Really, this thing can mount anywhere. Imagine, you know, right on your electric bike over here. Perfect fit. These modern cars, they just don't have good places for radios. But this little thing, you could put this just about anywhere. I mean, just stick it up anywhere. It fits in virtually any space. I'm going to spend most of my time in this video getting over the major problem that most people have, which is getting your radio working. Because the radio itself is simple to operate. It's just what you would expect if you're used to any other kind of mobile radio. But the programming in DMR is what really gets people upset. Luckily, a nice fellow has written improved programming software for this and the other Radioddity 40-watt version of this radio. Once you plug the radio in and got your USB driver set up, and you plug the programming cable into the PC and download the software from Radioddity. The first thing you're going to want to do is to load the software, what's in the radio into the computer. So you just read it. It goes over to the radio and takes what's in there from the factory. It doesn't matter. It just sort of needs to know what radio you're looking at and that kind of thing, and get your basic template set up. And it takes about 10-15 seconds. Next, you're going to go to your basic parameters. It's the second selection down. And be sure you, of course, have English selected over here. That's why I'm doing a screenshot so I can point to things. And if you've gone to, which you need to, go to Brandmeister or one of the other services and get your DMR ID number. And that's going to be right up here. I'm just going to leave mine in there because that's critical. You cannot get on the system at all without your DMR ID number. The rest of the stuff you can sort of leave as is. The next thing I would do is go down to the very bottom where it says zone channel. And these are really the banks. In other radios they call them banks, but in DMR they call them zones. And create your zones that you're going to want to use. I have my hotspot zone. In other words, my bank of channels I'm going to use with my hotspot because they're all in the same frequency. And I've got my analog zone, since the radio does FM. It's going to be all my local channels. You can throw in, a local DMR repeater if you want in there, but also what you could do is add another one with add up here and go ahead and add your local DMR repeater. Call it local DMR repeater, name it, because you'll be adding channels to these zones or banks later once you create your channels. You can edit, you can of course delete them as well here, your zones. So create all the ones you want, maybe weather channels, whatever whatever banks you think you might need of channels. The next thing is to do is to go under contacts down here and contact list, because these are going to be all of the talk groups. Some people call them chat rooms, reflectors in other systems, that kind of thing. But these in DMR, it's talk groups. So you're going to add the different talk groups that you're interested in using. And there's lists of these all over the internet. You can look at Brandmeister's DMR dump page, DMR hose it's called, and just see what talk groups are active. International 91 is definitely that you're going to want to use. For USA 3100 is extremely popular, but you're going to sort of add any of the talk groups that you might find interesting, topics, locations, things like that, and just add, type it in, and it's pretty simple. If I click on one of these, I just click into the field and add the number of the talk group, because each talk group will have a number. You can name it anything you want to name it, but it will have a number associated with it. So worldwide, the original one was 1, I guess, but you'd probably want to put 91 in there and hit enter, and that will be your worldwide 91. That's the most busy talk group. Also remember to add a parrot in there. Parrot as in something you talk into it and it repeats you back to see if your system's working. And those are in the 9,000 range. Look at those up and get the code on those correct. And then you start putting in your channels. Go to the very bottom under Zone Channel. Double click on it. These will pop up on the bottom over here. And then click on one of them and you can start adding channels to this zone. Pretty darn straightforward over here. You just click on it. You go, add another channel. Click on the field. Put in your frequency. You got your, whether it's digital or not. If it's analog, then you would, show analog, and you would have other options over here like tone and things like that. You're used to that stuff. But you just keep adding channels to this zone until you get all the channels you want in there. There's parrot over there. So when you talk into it, it talks back to you to tell you if you're functioning or not. These, since they're all the same frequency, is because they're on my hotspot, which is all on the same frequency, of course. You can adjust your power level and things like that. Let's see here. On my analog zone, see, I have my All-Star link up on the mountain. It has separate receive and transmit frequencies. I have a split band All-Star link up there, standard 2-meter FM repeaters, and I put the weather channel in there. So just keep adding channels to your zone until you have that bank of, I'm calling it a bank of channels that you like in that zone set up. Now remember, when you're putting your channels in, scroll all the way to the right, and you've got to put the contact in here that it's associated with. So whatever you named that talk group, you need to go down and select it under here. It'll be under here, and you can just scroll and associate that with the channel. So when it uses that channel, it'll know what code to be squirting into the hotspot or the repeater to connect you up with that talk group. Now, there's a ton of other features you can customize on this radio. We're not going to go through all of them here, but it will record QSOs. It has a prompt tone situation where you, when you unkey, when the channel goes idle, you'll hear a beedly boop, or you can adjust these to your own desires. These are all, your own desires. And really, the most important one is the preset buttons over here. So you've got the 1, 2, 3 keys on the radio itself. You got 4, 5, 6, 7 on the microphone. So there's a ton of customization. Plus, you got long press and short press for each one. So that's a lot of options and control you can set up. You get your microphone gain over here. The defaults tended to work for me just fine. So adjust those to your voice, whether you're operatic or you have a very soft voice like this, But there's also fine tuning for the DMR service itself. All kind of minimalistic stuff that the defaults are pretty good. Remember that this radio does APRS as well, transmits analog APRS. So you can put in your frequency 144.39, which is pretty much standard. Transmit power low for me. Your SSID, I'm AB5N-11, wide 1, wide 2. That's all normal stuff, and you're pretty much ready to go. So you can experiment with that a little bit later, something to get into there. Encryption is not applicable to us in the United States as it is illegal. So most of this other stuff we've been through over here, there also is a thing called RX groups, and it's sort of grouping stuff together, friends or people that have similar programming. Each one of these is described in full detail under here. So most of that you're not going to ever have to deal with to get the radio on the air and functioning. At this point, and at every point along the way, you're going to want to go and save this right away with the save up here and name it. I would save it at multiple locations and go ahead and burn it back to the radio, of course, when you're done. At that point, it's pretty darn easy to do. We just go device, write, and then a few seconds later, remember, if this does not happen, if you do not see this bar going across, you don't have the right COM port. So you've got to go into your device manager in Windows and see what COM port this thing pulled. It'll be the last one on the list in the device manager, LPT and COM ports, and then it will talk to it. But this software, this improved software, makes this situation so much easier. You can pull all of your hair out trying to do this on a lot of radios. So there you go. This one's pretty darn straightforward, and I would say in an hour you'll be on the air. Now, I've showed you how to do it with the traditional CPS software or the original stuff. Now, if you want to go over and try MM7 DBT's David's free software, it's you can donate to them if you want. It's really all the same stuff. The text is a little bit bolder maybe, but it's the same stuff. There's your DMR ID, your basic radio settings, your menu settings, which you can see here, all the optional stuff, button settings. It's got a pretty picture here. That's great, but it's the same selections exactly. Here's your contacts. Like I said, your talk groups. You're calling it contacts, and you just click on one of these and edit and edit in there with a name, whatever you want to name it, and its number, its talk group number. The same stuff. There's your zones. You create your zones on the left, and you add the channels to the zones. Pretty darn straightforward. Now, the thing that I like about this software is it allows you to do firmware updates real easy. Just go ahead and download the firmware update from Radioddity. Probably you have the latest stuff if you just bought the radio. Select the file and load it up to the radio. The other thing is, and this is a 3-coffee deal, you have to load up the over 265,000 DMR users into the radio for the first time, and maybe 5 years from now. But that's under Tools over here, and you're going to write the ham contacts over here. You go over to radioid.net and you download the user.csv file into your computer. Go ahead and select it over here, and then click Write to Radio, and then go in the other room for 10 minutes because it takes a long time. Once that's in there, you have everybody's contact info. It comes up on the screen real pretty when you're talking to somebody on the radio. And that's it. So you can try this, you can try the other one. They're both all the same functions. So there you have it, the Radioddity DB25 and DB25 Pro now. I'm giving it 2 thumbs up. It is a really cute radio at a really attractive price and really easy to program up. So I think you'd really enjoy it if you snag one, especially if you're going to mount it in a place where you couldn't possibly mount another radio, or taking it up to the top of a mountain or something. All right, big 7-3s, and go over to radioddity.com. Check them out. Nice bunch of folks. Take care.